إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no God, there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His servant and messenger. For you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd. I want to welcome you today to ascertain. As all of you know, an organization established to make da'wah, to invite people to the true and peaceful message of Islam, to encourage them, edify them, nurture them, wherever they are in their faith journey. This week we were, Thursday night I believe, we were at Troy University's new campus in Altamont Springs. We were addressing a graduate group of mental health counselors to be about Islam. It was a very interesting situation because one of the people in the class was a police officer. And I was talking about some things that had happened in my work in the Orange County Domestic Violence Task Force. And the captain actually was asking me questions via her cell phone in the class. So when we are out there doing this kind of work, you never know what happens. You never know who you might be working with. And this is why what we're doing is so important. So this police officer is now trying to get me to go and talk about cultural protocol, which is very apropos to this particular lecture that we're on, or sort of ending today, and then we'll be beginning somewhere else. Separating culture from religion. So that was one really good thing. And of course, Friday I was at Rollins College doing the Juma there. And last night, I guess it was too cold for most people to get out. Alhamdulillah, Bassem and Tina, Sister Ridwana, Sister Sarita, Naran and myself, Camila, Mason, Afsana, and her children. We had a wonderful, intimate evening. We did have our halakha like we always do. And so we missed those of you who didn't bear the cold last night. We had a very nice time.
No, I don't understand what policeman was asking you about.
No, the chief of police, one of his officers was in the class, and he was on the cell phone to her while I was lecturing, asking me questions, having her to ask them on his behalf about Muslim culture and how to deal with certain situations. So the next potluck, in lieu of the next potluck, on February the 27th, we'll be at the United Church of Christ. Mark your calendars for that. That will be when Naran is starring in the Faith Club. And of course, we want to go and make our presence known and to be seen as a powerful force as Muslims supporting this kind of thing. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a powerful presentation. You probably should bring some tissues with you. Most people that go see it cry. So you might want to carpool to go out to the villages. Nice idea. There's some ideas floating around. Naran has to find out if the cast is having a dinner afterwards or anything. If not, maybe we can all get together and go somewhere and have something to eat afterwards or something. She's going to try to find out what the plan is this week. And we can just send out is it called a punch bowl, Mason? That's some kind of notification anyway. So you guys know about all these things. I'm not going to repeat it. We are trying to support local pantries, particularly in this time. If you have extra blankets, by the way, Salvation Army, places like that, if you have the money to go just buy a blanket somewhere, Walmart, whatever, the least expensive, but it's a blanket. Right now, in this kind of weather, the homeless people really need blankets, and they will issue those blankets. So just keep that in mind. It's a good deed if you want to do it. If you want to know about how to get on the group invites and know what's going on, contact me soon. Back there in the corner, this is her phone number. Please pray for Kathy Beal's parents. They're not doing well. Abila's grandfather. And if you would like to do a good deed today, Brother Malik is in room 738 South. You have to know South because there are 738 rooms in Orlando Health Hospital downtown on Caleb, or Cool, whichever one you want to call it. But it's used to be Orlando Regional Mental Health. Medical Center, yeah, I'm thinking about my field. And it's now called Florida Hospital. And so we were there on Thursday night. I think Maysoon went last night. He would really appreciate your prayers. They removed a 10-inch rod that was in his leg because it was infected. And they replaced it with sort of an antibiotic kind of rod, and that'll have to be taken out. Another rod will have to be eventually put in. But he told me how much it meant. He didn't call any names, but he said one of the brothers from the class kept up with him, was always calling him. And this is really, really good. It touched my heart to hear that somebody in the class is keeping up with him as well. And so if you want to bring 70,000 angels to him, room 738 South Tower in the hospital downtown. Otherwise, if you can't go there personally, please keep praying for him. And I think that's it for the announcements to my knowledge. I cannot think of anything right now. Sharon's not here, but there is a barbecue coming up for the Muslim Academy of Greater Orlando. Tickets are $10. Sister Nurizam, can you expound on that? The Mako BBQ is when?
I don't have the date, I'm sorry, but I have the ticket.
Okay, if you want a ticket, even if you're not going to come and eat, it's $10. It's a great way. We don't pay rent here, but it's a great way to support the Muslim Academy of Greater Orlando. Every year I try to get people to buy a ticket. It's $10. You can come here on that Saturday, whichever Saturday it is, and it's usually a barbecue. Typically it's been barbecue chicken, I believe.
I always come, but I have to know the date.
Yes. So I think Sister Nurizam is going to get the ticket, and I'll let you guys know the actual date once I get that information, inshallah. So what we've been looking at is we began to look at a verse in the Holy Quran that talked about, it sounded like a verse addressing food because it said to partake in that which is lawful. And Maududi, Ibn Kathir, and Ma'ruful Quran, none of them address that is a verse addressing actual food. It's really about the issue of partaking of what Allah has allowed. And we got on the subject last week of nail polish and things like that, and I got really carried away. People like it when I get crazy, but I just want to say to the young people in here, I have to be very careful because sometimes my passion is misread as anger. I'm not angry. It's hard to manage a class sometimes when you don't know where people's questions are coming from, or the intentions behind certain questions. And so forgive me if I ever appear angry. That's not my intention at all. Just pray for me that my hal, my state, my condition, my ruh will always be that of kindness and peace. That's certainly what I want to promote.
But I never saw you angry.
Well, that's because you're prejudiced. But
I always see you crying.
Yes.
But not angry.
Well, and I'm not angry, but I think it can look angry. If you don't know me and I'm getting really passionate, someone will say, oh, he's angry. Yeah, I sound angry. So I just want to ask you to forgive me if that's your interpretation or that's how you've seen it. And I'll have to work on that because, I'll just have to work on that and we'll leave it there. In Sahih Muslim, Iyad bin Himar saying that Allah's messenger said that Allah the Exalted said, every type of wealth I have endowed my servant is allowed for them until I have created my servant Hunafa, pure and upright. But the devil comes to them and led them astray from their true religion and prohibited from them what I allowed. And just to pick back up on here, what we talked about is how that the Shaitan calls you, but who answers? You do. And it's very similar to a telephone. The telephone rings. Do you have to answer it?
No.
No. You can say, I'm eating dinner right now. I'll look on the voicemail after I finish eating dinner, and then I'll see who's called.
When I get called Maghrib time, I say it must be Shaitan, who is not Muslim.
So the same way that whenever it's time for us to pray, we don't answer the phone because we know we're going to have to make up our prayer. So when the Shaitan calls you, you do not have to answer. So the temptation is there, and it's whether you incubate it. It's like thought. You cannot help certain thoughts coming to you, but you can decide whether you maintain that thought. And I often do a very simple exercise in therapy with people, and I'll do it with all of you right now. And I'll see how it works, if it works. Okay, is everybody with me?
Yeah.
All right. I want you to think about what I say, and only what I say. Okay? Orange, 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 apple. Orange, 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 orange.
Cheese.
Now, when I said orange, what did you think about? Did anybody think of anything other than orange?
No.
Okay. Did you think about the fruit?
Yes.
But for 10 seconds approximately, you only thought of orange, right?
Yes.
What happened when I said apple?
I saw an apple pop up in the middle.
You saw an apple pop up in the middle of the oranges.
Yeah. Distraction.
You saw a distraction, but did you see oranges in that moment?
No. I saw
You no longer saw oranges, right? Now she saw both. But most people, unless you are actually mentally ill, can only carry one thought at a time. Sorry about that, Tina. That really came out wrong, didn't it? You can kick me now. I didn't mean it like that. But most human beings can only carry one thought at a time. Can any of you carry two thoughts at a time?
I saw a pumpkin. I didn't even think of the orange.
But you only thought of a pumpkin for 10 seconds, right? That's amazing. But when I said apple, did you still think of a pumpkin?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
You didn't deviate for a moment?
No, I was thinking about the pumpkin.
Still thinking, you had that pumpkin on your mind. You don't like a pumpkin pie or something.
And then when you were saying orange, I forgot there was a fruit called orange.
Most people, however, can only carry one thought per second in their brain. You do not have the capacity to think about two things at one time. If I say, for example, love, 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 some of you might think of a heart or your first love or something, but you'll get the warm and fuzzies. But as soon as I say the word hate, even your, what we call inside or domains of integration, your inner self will actually change. There'll be a shift. And this can be measured actually in what you feel based on the power of words. So typically, and there's always, every time I've ever done this, there's always an exception or two. But typically, we can only carry one thought. And the one thing that's beautiful about life is we get to choose what we think about. So when the Shaitan brings a negative thought, then we have to change our thinking. Allah doesn't change the conditions of man except by
His own soul.
his own soul. So if you don't like what you're thinking, change what you think. Go from apples to oranges, or oranges to apples, or pumpkin pie to whatever. Or like Tina, have a basket with apples and oranges in it. You can just go back and forth. The point being is, it is very important for us to control how we think. Because sometimes how we think is simply just not true. It's not based on what Allah has said about us. So if we are thinking something that is not what Allah has said about us, then it behooves us to change our thinking. So that's just one point here that I want to make. Verses 168 and 169 says that the Shaitan is an open enemy. He's not particularly discreet. He's wide out in the open, laying in front of us, behind us, to the right of us, to the left of us, with temptation. This also refers to an arbitrary attribution to Allah of commandments or prohibitions. So this is what I sort of really want to get into today, a lot of people will walk around and say, Islam says. People on Fox and CNN and various places will say, Allah says. They'll tell you at the masjid, astaghfirullah, that's haram. And they are attributing something they might have learned in culture. Now, if you talk to any major scholar, they will tell you very clearly that you cannot say something is haram unless it specifically is said in the Quran or authentic ahadith. We can't do that. But how many people know of things that they've been told are haram, but no one can show you a verse or a hadith about it? Okay. I think the majority of us have seen this. So, one of the things that happened is, was there a school of thought in Islam in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Only his school. Sunnah.
So, the school of thought then was according to what?
The Sunnah.
The Quran and the Sunnah. So there was no Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, Hanbali at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what you'll find in Islam is that there are a lot of opinions. If you want to really dig into this and get a little taste of it, it'll be exhausting, but buy the 2 volumes of Budaya al-Mujtahid. These are 2 classical books of fiqh, and you'll see all the arguments of Hanafi, Shafi, Hanbali, and Maliki. These 4 schools are the major 4 schools in the universe. They are recognized as 4 schools. Wahhabi is really not recognized as a madhab. It's more recognized almost as a cult, almost. I mean, if you study particularly the Wahhab family. But what happened was the scholars, the great scholars that created these schools, one of the biggest challenges that I see in Islam was when their students began to defend what their teacher had said, and they stopped being free thinkers. They stopped going to the Quran and the Sunnah and saying, wait a minute, let's reevaluate this based on all of the verses on this subject and all of the ahadiths. So this verse, these verses address this very issue. So you have a lot of people going around saying that, Allah commanded this, Allah prohibited this. But there is, and it's in excess of what has clearly been ordained. And one of the great scholars, Al-Makhshari, actually said this. This is a quote from him. There has also been quasi-religious ordinances made by men and touted as the laws. And let's just look at an example of this that came to me right now. Women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia. Now, nobody's going to be able to give me a verse from the Quran or a hadith that says women may not drive. But people will say, astaghfirullah, right? Well, isn't astaghfirullah saying that may Allah forgive me because this is a sin?
Yes.
Isn't that the projection of that? Yes, no?
Yes.
It's okay to disagree with me. So these verses really are about the reasonable balance that becomes incumbent on the rich and the poor of all well-regulated societies. Oh, I'm still on the same slide. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you. Yes.
Let me ask you, that the ladies cannot drive in Saudi. Did the women ride camels in the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Yes, they did. As a matter of fact, the beautiful hadith where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to women as crystal.
But I mean, were they jockeys?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it was a huge income source. Was people selling their camels at the time of the Prophet? It was like people dealing in horses today. It was a very big business. Yes, so women did ride the camels. Yes. So the beautiful hadith that I was saying is that the camel jocks. Now, this is also, I think, an interesting historical fact. The women were often being driven by camel jocks. So that meant that a woman was on a camel behind a man who she was not married to for the purpose of movement, what we would call mass transit today.
Movement arise gold too.
Yes, so here these, in this particular hadith, they were trying to get to the prayer because I think the prayer was running out. the prayer window was running out. And the Prophet Muhammad said, slow down and mind the crystal. Referring to the beauty of women. What is the most famous and popular crystal in the world today? A diamond. So the Prophet Muhammad was referring to the women as diamonds. Now some scholars have taken this hadith to say that women are fragile, like crystal. I don't see that. I see that what the Prophet was saying is how precious they were. Be gentle with them. Be kind to them. This is a diamond that you have riding on that camel. And to each his own. People are allowed to have their opinions. But if you study all of the things that Allah has said about women, that they're 3 times more worthy of respect than men, that He elevated women, that He gave them, dowries, the choice to marry who they wanted to, the permission to get a divorce, which they did not have before. If you look at everything, and this is how you're supposed to study Islam. You can't just pull one piece out of a hadith or one piece out of a verse and build your position on it. You have to look at everything. Did I answer your question, Aaron? Okay. The principle of Islam is that what is lawful is good for all and should be followed by all. And this is also really important to recognize, because if you study Islamic financing, the Islamic financing is actually supposed to be a win-win situation. That anything that you go in Islam, we're encouraged to do marketing, we're encouraged to take risk with our money. Because the bigger the risk, the more opportunity you have to earn. In an Islamic society, we do not follow what is evil, shameful, or foisted on by false ascription to divine injunctions. So just because, and I really want to expound on this, particularly for new Muslims or people that might not have a lot of knowledge. Because when you go places, people really want to show off their knowledge. And they want to tell you all this stuff, but they will not give you proofs. And I think this is one of the hardest things that I have in this class, is trying to keep people on the straight line. Because there are people that want to question what I say sometimes. And when they do that, what is their intention?
To prove you wrong.
Because if you take, say, a translation of the Quran, and I'm telling you that something says something, and I'm using 3 tafsirs from scholars, and you're using an English translation of the Quran, we're not dealing with apples to apples here. And it creates a problem because somebody can be misguided. So another reason why it's so hard sometimes when you're teaching to keep the decorum that's needed in a class so that people are not misled. It really is very heartbreaking for me that anyone would think that I'm an angry person. If you have to live with me or know me very well, you will know that this is totally juxtaposed to who I am. I'm such a laid-back person predominantly. But it's very painful, and yet I have a responsibility. And when you are teaching, and people come from left field with something, and they say that what you're saying is not right, but they're not using an authentic source. An English translation of the Quran is not an authentic source. Then you have a responsibility to confront that, and sometimes when you're beating the clock in a class, you may not be as polite as you would like to be. So again, I ask you to forgive me for that. A great example is found in verse 173 in the prohibition of eating dead meat, a shameful custom among the pagan Arabs of taking congealed blood and eating it fried. So if you look at this verse, as I said several weeks ago, this verse is not about halal and zabiha. It is later, in verse 173, but not where we were in 167, it is actually addressing a custom, and that's the asbab. You have to know that what this verse was addressing was a custom. What does the Bible say about blood? It says the life of the flesh is in the blood. Where does disease, where are diseases mostly born? In the blood. So when you eat blood, which we know that when we eat halal or zabiha, the blood is drained out. And there is a lot of research out there today that ADHD and certain situations that we're having now is a result of us eating a lot of blood. Because how many people eat rare steak? And the blood is running out of it. And how was that animal killed? That animal was killed with electricity. If you get shocked, what happens to your body? It has a release of adrenaline, cortisol. All of these hormones are released into your muscles. Actually, we call it muscle toxicity. When you even do this, if you go work out at the gym, what happens? You have muscle toxicity because you get a release of these various chemicals within the body. So when you eat the meat and it has that in it, and there's a lot of research about this, then it actually affects us.
So you think these Muslims who are selling the food, chicken and all that kill it with electricity?
No, not at all. No, what I'm saying is if you don't eat halal, the way that animals are killed in this country, pain is delivered to them. And that pain is stored in the muscle and in the meat that you actually eat. The release of chemicals because of that pain, you're actually ingesting it. And when you ingest it, it would be the same thing as people taking steroids. You're actually ingesting adrenaline.
Yeah, I know about that, but I was thinking...
No, I'm not saying that Muslims are doing this. What I'm trying to point out is some documents to validate and to fortify what I'm saying in terms of what Islam teaches. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. In Surah 35 and verse 6, surely, verily, Shaitan is an enemy to you, so take or treat him as an enemy. He only invites his followers that they may become the dwellers of the blazing fire. That's his niyyah, that's his intention. But he makes it look really good. He makes something look very alluring and very attractive. But his underlying intention is to lead you to the blazing fire. Evil is our enemy and he should be treated as such. It is really foreign to our nature, however much it may disguise itself to deceive us as our friend or a part of our nature. Personifying the spirit of evil, we may say that he wants us to share in his own damnation. So he has this period of time that he requested from Allah that has been allotted to him to test us. But at the end, he will have his eternal damnation. We have to recognize that that is his purpose, to tempt us. And we have to recognize that we hate what Allah hates and we love what Allah loves. So when we see that temptation, we actually hate that temptation. This is one place where Muslims should hate. Sometimes people will make an erroneous statement when they're trying to convince other people about Muslims that say Muslims don't hate. Well, that's contrary to the Quran. We do hate. We hate what Allah hates. Anything that Allah hates, we hate it. But that's where we draw the line. That's what the Muslim is allowed to hate. And we love what Allah loves. So do Muslims hate? Yeah, we hate what Allah hates. But our hate is not about our own nafus. It's not about our own desires. It's not about our own ego. My ego doesn't like this. I hate that. No, I hate that because it is against the teachings of Allah. And because I love Allah so much, if He hates something, I hate it. In Surah 18, verse 50, will you then take him, Iblis, and his offspring as protectors and helpers rather than me, while they are enemies to you? What an evil is the exchange for the zalimin, the polytheists and wrongdoers. So, we talked a little bit last week about how many people are actually satanic worshippers today. This is actually growing. And so is atheism and agnosticism. People just not believing in God. In high schools, there are atheist clubs. Out of the limited free will that man has, if he or she wants to choose evil instead of good, Satan instead of Allah, what a dreadful choice it would be. It would really be an evil exchange. For man is Allah's creature, cared for and cherished by Him. he abandons his cherisher to become the slave of the enemy. A very powerful little piece there if you process that for a minute. We are owned by Allah. And everything Allah gives us on this earth is simply temporary. It actually belongs to Allah. But he sort of puts it in our hand as a trustee. That's what it means to be a vicegerent. And he is examining, we're having an exam on how we're going to handle what he trusts us with on this earth. Will we handle it according to his dictates, or will we handle it according to our nufus, our lower self? We are often tempted by created things which cannot be coexistent with Allah. So if you look at some of the things that we're created with, like greed and arrogance and pride and haughtiness, some of the diseases of the heart, they cannot coexist with Allah. How can man take created things for his masters? And it's a very simple example, but almost everything that we own on this earth really owns us. When you have a house, you are a slave to the local tax collector. If you don't pay your taxes, they will take your property away from you. You're a slave to keep it painted, to keep it maintained, to keep it in good condition. And some of us become slaves. There are people that will become unglued if somebody opens a car door on their car. So that the actual created things of this world control our hal, our state. I can be very happy. All of a sudden somebody opens a car door on my car, makes a little dinghy on my brand new car, and all of a sudden my hal is out the window. My hal has gone to hell. You know, and now I'm ticked, and now I'm getting out my insurance cards. And there's a balance here. That's why we pay for insurance. But how does it affect our state? And that's what's so important. How is your state?
Angry.
Allah is almighty, all-knowing and self-sufficient. The belief that any being or power could have the helping share in his divinity or could mediate between him and man causes the latter to go utterly astray. Qatada and Asudi commented on, and follow not the footsteps of Shaitan. Every act of disbelief to Allah is among the footsteps of Shaitan. And this is really a very powerful piece. It almost sort of blows me over. Even just talking about it, I sense a feeling of heaviness. Because what is disobedience?
Lack of obedience. Rejecting Allah?
It's rejecting something that you know is the truth from Allah. That's simply disobedience. If I say to, well, Elijah's a little young for that right now, but if I say to one of my children who's 10 or 11 years old, put on your jacket, it's cold outside. And they say, no, Daddy, I'm not putting on my jacket. What is that called?
Disobedience.
It's disobedience. It's disobedience. I told them, put on the jacket. Now, if Allah tells us to do something, it's that simple. You say, no, I'm not doing that. I know Allah said that I should do it, but I'm not going to do that. Is that any different? It's not any different. And when we do that, it's very important for us to recognize, I'm in the footsteps of Satan. And that's heavy. But are we committed? Are we surrendering? And so let's take it another step, because it's something for us to consider. It's a real gift if we can take this and use it to elevate ourselves spiritually. If I know that Allah is telling me to do something and I don't do it, is that called surrender to Allah and submission? No. Disobedience is the opposite of surrender and submission. Abd bin Humayyad reported that Ibn Abbas said, any vow or oath that one makes while angry is among the footsteps of Shaitan, and its expiation is that of a vow. So in other words, I got to clean up my act if I make a mistake. And this is something that I feel we really need to hear over and over and over in Islam, is that when we do something, an act of disobedience, an act that is not in surrender or submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we must do something to correct. A lot of us think that astaghfirullah is correction. It is very clear in the Holy Quran that when we have disobeyed, when we have surrendered to the temptation of Shaitan, we must repent and amend. And that repenting and amend is not only asking Allah to forgive me, but committing that I'm not going to do that again. And what do most humans do? The same thing over and over and over and over again. And what do we say? We say, well, that's just who I am. That means it's the lower self. And that's why the Prophet said to know yourself is to know Allah. You must know that part of yourself so that you commit to change that part of yourself, to surrender and commit that self to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He, Satan, commands you only what is evil and fasha, sinful, and that you should say about Allah what you know not. Look at this verse. There are a lot of people saying about Allah what they don't know. So they say, astaghfirullah. That's haram. Show me. Can you tell me? Show and tell. I don't know where it says, but I heard it. Satan commands you only what is evil and fasha, and that you should say about Allah what you know not. Who's commanding you to do that? Who's commanding these people to do that? I didn't write it. It comes from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 169. So are you surrendering to Allah, or are you surrendering to the temptation of Satan? You're surrendering to the temptation of Satan. And this is why we should hate this. And last week, I heard Sarah in the background say, I just love it when